you need to use those tools. Now, some people are going to be in jail, some people are going to need emotional support, some people are going to be sick, and some people just need someone to rely on. And when you came to this earth, she said, you came with nothing, and you're going to leave as bare as you came. But she said you're going to get a choice through your life, and that is you can go to your grave with a full wallet and pocket, or you can go with a full heart.
Welcome to the show. Tough Times Never Last. I'm Michael Kuzilny. We've been doing the show for over 10 years now, folks, and we've had viewers from the US, from England, from Canada, and love and best wishes to you all. And we've got the lovely Mary. She's, thank you very much for coming on, Mary.
Thank you for having me, Michael, and welcome back, viewers.
Mary's a great sport. She's a cancer survivor, but she's gotten over that many years ago, but she walks into a room and she's brightens it up, so you'll make the job a lot easier.
Lovely welcome, thank you.
And on today's show, a great man called Tony Nikolic. He's not just a lawyer and running for politics, but I've read all his reviews. He's a good man, he's well respected, and he's dedicated his life to helping others through the tough times. But who is Tony Nikolic?
Oh, look, thanks for having me first. Appreciate it. Tony Nikolic is a guy, grew up in a modest household. Parents immigrated from Montenegro, Albanian by descent, and they came here in the 50s. Well, my father did. And he, like many Albanians and immigrants at that time, had to find their way. They did not know any English. They went through tough times. They worked in the cane fields. They worked on the Snowy River scheme, some of them, and some of them didn't know how to speak, but they made their way. And I think it's that intestinal fortitude that comes through life, and we adopt that as children, and we see that, and they accepted so many people through.
And where did you grow up
times.
in Sydney?
Well, born in Darwin.
Yeah.
And father, after Cyclone Tracy, we moved to Sydney and grew up in and around the Hurstville area. So.
And as a young bloke, what was your passion? Like, did you always want to help people, or you just wanted to stand up for the underdog?
I was just a pest.
Really?
Yes, and being a pest, and I say that in jest, but I felt that having that instinct that was passed down through the parents, and it was always about helping people, and the Albanian community was very small at that time, but we all stuck together, and it was that sense of solidarity. But it wasn't just the Albanian community, it was, the Balkan community. It was very, very closely knit, and through that process we learnt a lot as people, and we got to meet so many lovely people through that process.
Lovely. I'm Ukrainian background. Is that Balkan, Mary?
No, outside the Balkans.
I get a bit confused sometimes, the viewers. I grew up in Hamburg in West Germany. My first language was German, Deutsch, but Mum and Dad were both Ukrainian, so I used to say I was German, but I'm really Ukrainian. Mary, well, you're Albanian. You've known the great man for quite some time. Where did you guys first meet?
Through the Albanian community. I've known Tony since we were kids.
Yes,
was he a troublemaker?
He was a troublemaker. It's quite surprising he ended up being this respected lawyer.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to be a lawyer?
I used to work with the Institute of Criminology, placed in various New South Wales police stations, working on drug intelligence
That
stuff.
came after your partying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was no way I could have done the two together.
Tony, like that job, you come back, you're mucking around, Did you see an ad in the paper or something?
No, not.
How did you fall into that?
I bring it back to my parents and the upbringing that we had. And it was all, and Mary knows this too, because her parents were right in that community as well, to the extent that we helped so many people who didn't have anything. You didn't have to be Albanian, let's face it. You didn't have to. You could have been Serbian, Croat, Bosnian. You could have been Ukrainian. They took you in. They gave you a couple of days. And I remember waking up some mornings and I wouldn't know who's at the breakfast table, to the extent that I would say, am I even in the right house? Because there'd be people sitting at your breakfast table. But that was that inviting European culture, but also bringing it to the Australian side of things. And I see that we've sort of diverged somewhat from that, wanting to help others. And to me, what I do now is really a part of what my parents gave to me and the community I grew up in.
Do you find society's become a lot more selfish and maybe angry?
To an extent, yes, but not completely.
No.
There is certainly hope, and I hinge that back to, for instance, if you look at the 2022 floods in northern New South Wales, myself and a whole bunch of people travelled up to Coracai, Kempsey, and those areas, and the floods were devastating. There were people who had lost everything. There were cows in trees, that's how high the water went, and people had lost absolutely everything. And we went there on our own bat. So we got ourselves together, and because I worked a lot with police, paramedics, fire, just through my processes working in that area, we had a lot of friends and contacts. So we all got together as a group, and the government at that stage wasn't even there. The military had some advisors on the ground at that stage.
Yeah.
And I'm talking advisors, they didn't even have their troops on the ground at that stage. They just had advisors. What are we going to do? We went up there with dinghies, jet skis, utes, four-wheel drives. But the most important thing we did was we took hampers. So we took blankets, we took food, we took those daily necessities for people. And I remember knocking on the door of an elderly lady at that time, and she'd been stuck in her house for a few days. And she cried and she hugged me and she said, "You're the first person I've seen. I'm not even seeing police," and I'm not being critical of the police, because they were also stretched, and It was a very small community. There was 1 or 2 police officers, and so for us, when she cried and hugged me, and I had a box full of food,
isn't that amazing?
Toiletries,
Tony? Isn't that amazing, viewers? It's a very fast-paced, busy and cold society, I find, over the last 3 years. But here's an example of a man who's really given his life to helping people in need, which comes from his parents, probably that European background. But the message is just to smile a bit more and show a bit of unconditional loving kindness to others. I think I get that out of a lot of interviews. So this man has gone from just being a cheeky kid, travelling, crime investigation, lawyer, and now going for politics, Tony.
Yes, indeed. So I ran in the last 2 elections, the federal elections. Yeah. So one was with the United Australia Party, got almost close to 11%, first time ever running, and second time was with the One Nation Party. I was endorsed very late in the process, so 2 weeks before you get a 2-week pre-poll period. I think it was within 5 days I had to ramp up and organise volunteers, call flutes, how to vote cards. So there was a lot of logistics, and I managed to do it, and thankfully I had 20 volunteers come and say, "Hey, we're going to help you."
Amazing. And Mary, when sorry to interrupt, when we look at somebody who we want to be in politics, it's a perfect background, isn't it? Because we want a good bloke. We don't want someone who's not a good bloke, who doesn't care for people. And if you wanted a politician to change the world a bit or change the state, what would you be looking for? What sort of qualities?
Somebody that compassionate, somebody that's honest, somebody that actually says what they want to do and actually actions it. Because I haven't seen much action.
And maybe unemployment, and I think I read that in your brochure, I was going to say. So what are the things that you would help Australians with?
I think first, what we need to do, we need to come back to who we are as a people and a culture, and that adopting that Australian culture is what we need. But adopting an Australian culture doesn't mean multiculturalism, and I say that with the greatest respect. We have an Australian culture, and within that culture, we have many other cultures that coexist, but we have our own unique identity as Australians. And I was touching on it a moment ago. People came from all over the world to adopt an Australian culture. They were very grateful that they were leaving perhaps a pogrom or genocide, or whether it was a communist regime where they couldn't adapt and things were rather difficult. We have an Australian culture, and I remember, and I certainly know from other Albanians and people from the Balkans, they adopted that, and they came to a country that said, you don't know how lucky you are where you are. And my father ingrained that into me.
Is he still around, Tony? Your dad?
He passed away. My mother passed away suddenly in 2013. But
2013?
Yes.
And Dad?
2018. Yes. So.
And who's left now? And who's the Nikolic family now?
Well, myself, I've got an older brother and I've got an older sister.
Are you close?
Yeah, we're all very close. We're all very close in terms of...
they must be very proud of you, Tony.
I think we're proud of each other.
Yeah.
We're very, very close knit. And it's not about me, it's about who we are as a family.
Yeah.
But I also see when I walk outside, your child, it may sound quite weird, and your child, I actually, if I see something, I will stand up for them. And I remember my mother, before she passed away, she said to me, she said, Tony, besides saying you're cheeky, she said to me, God's given you something, and she was very religious. God's given you something. You need to use those tools. Now, some people are going to be in jail. Some people are going to need emotional support. Some people are going to be sick, and some people just need someone to rely on. And when you came to this earth, she said, you came with nothing, and you're going to leave as bare as you came. But she said you're going to get a choice through your life, and that is you can go to your grave with a full wallet and pocket, or you can go with a full heart.
Wow.
And
You've
she
chosen
said,
the heart.
Yeah, and she said stick up for those people and always give back to the community.
So it sounds to me like you bring love and faith into your job.
For me, you're a human being first.
Yeah.
And I understand people make mistakes. I make mistakes on a daily. We all do. But do we persecute that person? Do we run them through the reputational mill that grinds someone down to the ground?
You're so right. And viewers, that's right, isn't it? We're such a judgmental society, you know. We just look at people and, you know, what do you do and where do you live? I remember when I was in Victoria there, you know, where do you live? And you had to live on the right side in, you know, to see whether you qualify to be a friend. You know, how much staff have you got? Are you busy? I used to just walk off with these pretentious people, you know. Like Tony said, I think we come here naked by ourselves. We die naked by ourselves. And we're all important, but no one's that important, you know. We're all important, but no one's that important. So it seems like Tony Nikolic, your mate, is a good man. That really do good things in the community. And he's got a good heart.
Do you get a lot of phone calls, people asking for help?
Yeah, so I get a lot of calls, and predominantly, look, we do crime, family law, very good in those areas, and I've got a really good team and former police prosecutors on my criminal team.
Amazing.
Excellent results. And I mean, I'm not just saying that because I'm on camera. We do get
No, well, that makes sense because, we're negotiating with the police all the time, and if it's somebody from a similar background, they talk the talk, don't they?
Yeah, and we know, and because we also walked a mile in those shoes, as they say, as the saying goes, there's a lot of respect there, and I do, and sometimes we do find that there's a juxtaposition. It's quite stark in the sense that, you know, they're saying one thing, they're coming after your client, the police that is, and we're trying to defend the client, but we're really good at saying, well, what are the real issues here? All right, let's take out all the emotion.
Yeah.
What are the real issues? What are the charges? And what can we do? And we're really good at that. And you don't attack the police for doing. They're doing a job, and we respect that, and we do respect that. And I've still got a lot of friends in quite high ranks.
Yeah, not many people get that, do they? That's right, because I suppose we're all officers of the court.
Yes.
And we're pointing out we're good finders. We're finding out the good things about our client, because whatever people go through, folks, it's only a very small chapter of their lives. Yes. A lot of people I've represented over the last 25 years are good, decent people, and we all make mistakes. I've made plenty. Mary's made heaps.
I've made plenty. Yes.
Tony has lots. When he was younger.
A troublemaker.
Has.
It's been quite the journey, but I think I got to reflect back to when I was a kid and what my parents taught me and what I learned in the community.
Yeah.
It's not me. I'm just a product of
a conduit.
I'm just extending on that now. That's beautiful. What I'm doing, and I'm just giving back.
You're here to serve.
That's where
How may I serve?
And that's what I do. And when you say, who do I talk to on a daily basis? I talk to people who are going through, you said, momentary lapses of crisis.
Yes.
And when you actually sit back, and I reflect on my time too, so it's not just their time. And I say to myself, well, if I was in your position, how would I do it? And I look at resilience.
That is so true, Tony. And folks, that's so true, It's a very soft society, but I've gone through my fair share of difficult times, both in the police and in the law and my personal life. And unless you've been there, and I think every difficult time just gives you that more empathy to really feel what other people are going through. But if you're going through a difficult issue, remember it's all impermanent. All the good things never last, and all the bad things can't last either, Tony. That's right, isn't it? It's all impermanent. And
the best way to uplift, first and foremost, is to understand the other side.
Yes.
Listen to the other side. Yes. Okay. And if you're authentic in your approach, okay, that person sees they're talking to someone who's got empathy.
Yeah.
They're talking to someone who listens, and they're talking to someone who can actually impart some of their life journey onto you. Now, it may be slightly different for what they're encountering.
Yes.
But they then are provided with a key that may unlock something to them that they may not have seen, because someone who is in a dark, depressive or manic, or it could be any other problem state, they're desperately looking for something, and they're wanting for someone not only to tell them, the most important thing is listen. And if you listen and you can help them unpack something, and you guide them and not tell them but guide them, and let them make the decision, you're now empowering that person.
That's amazing, Tony. That's almost like part of therapeutic criminal law, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Therapeutic. So it makes us become lawyers, but also counsellors, life coaches. So
a good lawyer, and you would know this, a good lawyer. We're commercial beings, so yes, we do make money, and yes, we do charge by the hour. And some say, my gosh, how the hell do you charge so much? But remember one thing, it's expensive, but it's more expensive not to have a lawyer. Yes. That's one thing. And the other side of the coin is this: because we're commercial beings, you've got also a duty to the court and also to the police and to the community.
Yes.
And we need to juggle that. So one of the best things, and I know what my team does, is we say, and we say it with the greatest respect, I don't want you to come back. What can I do? So we're going to get you out of the problem, or we'll do our best to reduce the problem, because sometimes the success is, rather than a 5-year sentence, a 1-year sentence. Mm-hmm. And that could be a community corrections order, for instance. Now, that's a really big success. The other success is obviously not guilty, right? But what you want to do is impart that knowledge onto that person and say, because they may not have done that, or they may have not been taught this. And remember, we may have grown up in a loving household. We don't know how they grew up.
Yes,
and so we need to empathise. What are the roots of this person? Where did they come from?
That's amazing you say that, because I spoke to a bloke last year, and he goes, I hope they go to jail, come out, 4 months, they do something else, Whereas I'm the same. Don't come back. Next time it's going to get worse. And that gives you a real purpose, doesn't it? And satisfaction.
Well, it does. And so for me, I'll unpack that. I'll listen to them. And I'll say, well, and then I'll try and determine where is it that the wheels fell off this. Okay, where is it?
Yes.
And if it is something to do with anger, or if it's something to do with drug and alcohol abuse, well, one of the best things you can do is guide them into a therapeutic session to where they can take responsibility of their own actions.
Yes.
So they take accountability, because this is where you learn. You learn, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. I've swallowed it so many times. I say, I made a mistake, I need to own that mistake.
And I can imagine, Tony, because you are so genuine and you don't rush them, and you really care about most of your clients, that the magistrates would be very impressed by your authentic plea, because it almost seems to me judges and magistrates just look at lawyers because they hear so much garbage. And but when they look at you, they don't see any bullshit. It's just authenticity, and they listen, don't they?
Well, they certainly do. And again, it's not just the authenticity, it's the case you bring for them.
Yes.
And they know you're assisting, and they see you, and they say to you, they go, well, this is a no-nonsense case. This guy, if he says it's red, chances are it's red. Okay, so you've built that authentic approach with them, and I've got a lot of respect for the bar. I do criticise them sometimes and I do it academically, not in a rude or derogatory manner, in articles and things like that. But they're more questions and addressing gaps in law. How can we improve it? It's not, hey, you're a bad person, or there's corruption. I don't do that. That's not who I am. I try and identify the issue. And I say to it, well, what is the issue we're trying to identify? What are we trying to fix? Because they have a job. They need to interpret the law and meter out some form of justice.
That's amazing. So Tony's really thrown his heart into it. I suppose you've got to be excellent at whatever you do. You wouldn't want a heart surgeon who says, I'm just average. So you've got to be excellent at first class, don't you, Mary? Like you, when you ran your fashion empire, you're excellent at first class, including China all the time, and everything was...
We all face challenges.
Yeah.
All of us have faced challenges, and I'm sure even you, Tony, have faced many challenges
On a daily
through
basis.
your personal life, careers. How do you fight through it? How have you fought through it? What's made you get up and keep going?
First part, I reflect back on how I approach things, and because I did an honours degree in criminology, I did a lot of sociology and psychology in that mix. It taught me to look within myself. And by looking within myself, this is how I identify what am I doing good, what can I improve on, and not only what can I improve on, what should I disregard. And in that sense, you need to recognise your own weaknesses, number one. You need to be able to say, and I keep saying this, you need to be accountable to yourself. If you're not accountable to yourself, you cannot improve. And it's okay to be a man or a woman and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And it's good to say this, okay, because it's very therapeutic. And it's not just therapeutic, it gives you that authenticity that helps you in your community. Because at the end of the day, people want to see someone who not only tries their best to do something, gives it their all, and even if they don't succeed, they'll still stand up proud. And I've done cases where I may not have succeeded, but the purpose upon which I ran the case was for one of the best intentions you could have had. But then I go away and I'll reflect on that. And I'll say, what could I have done better? What could I have spoken to this person about? How do I improve this? What case law didn't I look at? And I look at this and I self-reflect. And when I do self-reflect, I then also go out into the community. And for instance, Father Riley Youth Off the Streets, that is where they get kids off the streets who have had troubled backgrounds. And I'll go there and I set up the pro bono program with the University of Western Sydney to help these kids. So when they went to court, they had support there because they didn't have family. And Father Riley Youth Off the Streets does an amazing job out there. So I go out there and I help them and I help connect kids. So I'm reconnecting there. I do pro bono work with the Innocence Project.
What is an Innocent Project?
Okay, so the Innocence Project is a project that was developed in the United States. We have our own one here called the Bridge of Hope. So it's a little bit of an offset, but I travelled over to San Diego just before the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns, and I travelled over there and I met with some of the people, lovely people, they're criminal lawyers and criminal or the legal faculties. And what we do is I'm sure if you knock on, and as a police officer you would know this too, former police and former law, everyone says they're innocent when they're in jail, right? But what we did was we would take briefs and we would say, wow, there's something not right with this case, and we believe that this person could be innocent, and why should they spend the rest of their life in jail? And so what we do is we then develop teams, and those teams help these people pro bono to get them out, or at least bring it to the attention of the courts. Remember one thing, not everyone in jail has done it. And I know from the criminology statistics some time ago, 7 to 14% that we know of. So think about this, there's 17 to 14% of people who are in jail who shouldn't be there. Okay, and for whatever reason that may be. I'm not saying it's corruption, that's not what I'm saying, because it's a failure of some part of the system that has got this person in, okay? And we need to address that. So imagine being someone who's being held in custody for the rest of their life for an accusation of murdering someone they never even murdered, and 30, 35 years later they're being released. Well, we've just wasted a person's life by virtue of a mistake, and no one wanted to look at it. And I think that's unfair. And I think that is patently unfair. And I think we need to get down to the bottom of it and say, okay, how do we better investigate these processes, and what processes can we improve on? Here's the self-reflection. Institutions here in Australia are prone to not self-reflecting. They want to protect the part on which they put that person there and say, well, no, we've found that person guilty. They've been through a trial, they've been through an appeal, but we've got a really good appeals area here in Australia, and I'm very proud of it, to be quite honest with you, because through the process, chances are it'll come out. But as you would know, the cost of going through your local court, then the district court, then the Supreme Court, then Court of Appeal, you get to a High Court, and the High Court might exonerate you, but that's 10 years down the track, and it's possibly $1.5–2 million. Who's got that? So what I'm saying is we need to self-reflect and improve on the investigation process.
Yes.
Because if the investigation process is a very good, thorough process, we don't put that person through that. But on the Innocence Project, we need to be able to identify that and say, how can we bring this person and give them the justice that they deserve?
Terrific, isn't it?
Do you think there could be changes made to the system?
Absolutely, and I fight for it every day. I'm writing articles every day on certain things, how do we improve, and that's a part of the critique that I was saying. I'm looking for the gaps, and you know, as a lawyer too, you're not looking at what's provided to you, you're looking at what's not provided to you. What is there that should be there, and what isn't there that should be there? Has
there been any progress with that?
Yes, there's always progress, and I'm very optimistic. And even in the darkest days, I'm very optimistic. And as I said, even if there's a non-success, I say to myself, well, I want to keep chipping away, because I'm on this, and we need to, if I give up, then you give up. And if there's no one leading the charge or going for it, then how is it that we can improve? And if you look through history, it's someone's taken a principled approach to something, and they keep going with it, and they fight for it, and they stay with it. And I've been, publishing in certain areas for well over 15 years. You
published the book chapter,
International Handbook of Whistleblower Research, yes. And that was all about introducing and saving the Commonwealth and the taxpayer. So whether it's the Australian taxpayer or the American taxpayer or whatever taxpayer, but integrating these laws so they are meshed together, and so there's a level of international comity or unity, and that protects whistleblowers. And the whistleblower is someone who will come out and say, there's something wrong, we need to fix this, okay? And that could be defrauding the Commonwealth. We as taxpayers need to understand that the Commonwealth Government holds funds on trust, okay, for us. They can't just go and dispense this as they want, okay, go and build yourself a fountain or something. There might be more needier stuff. What about a hospital? What about a bail house for young kids? What about, the homeless? How do we help? So when we defraud the government through processes, and again, it's a very beneficial government process. It helps us reduce taxes. Reduce taxes, what does that do? It puts more money in your pocket. So it's a very beneficial system, but we need to protect the whistleblower who comes out and protects us from corporate fraud. But going against the corporations, we need better protections, and that's what I fight for.
Well, Mary, the verdict is Tony Nikolic is a very good man, and I think he's would make a great politician, and he's a good lawyer. Thank you very much for coming on.
You need to use those tools. Now, some people are going to be in jail, some people are going to need emotional support, some people are going to be sick, and some people just need someone to rely on. And when you came to this earth, she said, you came with nothing, and you're going to leave as bare as you came. But she said you're going to get a choice through your life, and that is you can go to your grave with a full wallet and pocket, or you can go with a full heart.